turn this into this. Ooh, it's pretty. Hey everyone, so I bought a 4-pack combo of air dry clay packets online, which is a lot, so I thought I'd put it to good use. Thankfully, I found a cardboard box, so I cut around 8 inches by 10 inches of rectangular shape out of it and thought, how about I use clay on it to create a koi pond with a lily garden. I also got this old soft pastel set, so I wanted to use it as well. I decided to use the pastels to give color shades to the clay. And for the protection of the final artwork, I've got this varnish. As for the tools, the clay packs were supposed to give some, but mine didn't. So I'm using some basic household stuff instead of specialized clay tools so that everyone can make this art piece. First, a rolling pin. If you don't have it, just use any cylindrical object like a Decor bottle to flatten the clay. Next is a blunt knife. Make sure the knife is not too thick on its edges. Just an old kitchen knife that lost its sharpness will do. Apart from that, a sharp knife is needed. If you have an X-Acto knife, then that's a better choice. I'm going to use my X-Acto knife here. It's available in any stationery shop. You can also keep a pair of scissors handy. If you want to add shading to the clay, then you'll need some brushes along with the soft pastel set. One thin and one thick brush will do. They'll be useful for varnishing as well. I'm using a number 2 and a number 8 brush. I'm also going to use a pencil, but it's not mandatory. You can use any sharp pointy thing instead of a pencil. Now this thing, well, it's a flower shaped cutter for cake decoration. If you don't have it, no worries. I'll show you how to make flowers without it just by hand. This cutter just makes the process faster. Last but not least is glue. Try to use a glue that dries clear. Now let's make the base first, which means the water in the pond. I started off with 3 packets of blue and 1 packet of white clay, but that wasn't enough. So I would suggest you to use 3 packets of blue with 2 packets of white clay for an 8 inches by 10 inches area. Knead all the clay pieces together well. Super clay becomes softer with water, so dip your fingers lightly in water and knead if the clay becomes harder. Then flatten it with the rolling pin or anything cylindrical. This part takes time. If you can't make an entire large flat sheet to match the cardboard size, then do it in pieces. Use water to smooth out the surface and close up the cracks. I ended up having a heavily textured surface. I thought of smoothing it further, but then I felt that the texture kind of added character and motion in the water. Yes, that's my excuse for being lazy. Besides, the clay was not cooperating with me. After that, I just decided to scrape some soft pastel colors to shade the water. Yes, my knife is not aesthetically pleasing, but it works well, you know. I'm using different shades of blue and green. I'm also going to use yellow and white to create some lighting effect on water. I hope it works. Initially, I started with a thick brush to shade the water, but it was taking too much time, so instead of using a brush, I'm using the chalk pastels directly on the clay. And it kind of works. Shading darker colors on the edges and lighter and greener colors in the middle, adding yellow and white there too. For all the different greens I'm going to need for the leaves, I'm using 1 blue pack, 3 green packs and 1 yellow pack in total. First is the dark green, where I'm using 1 blue and 1 green pack of clay. So I'm kneading them together like before. Now taking a small portion of it and making a round ball out of it. Then pressing it with my palm to flatten it. You can use your fingers to further adjust the shape. To be honest, I didn't measure any size for the leaves. I'm just making sure they are no bigger than bottle caps or coins. After flattening is done, I am cutting a triangular shape from one side of the clay using the X-Acto knife to give that lily pad look. You can use the same X-Acto knife to smooth out the rough edges after the cut. Then I am using my aesthetically challenged blunt knife to create leaf veins. I am taking the cutting point as the center and creating the creases around it like so. After that, I am pushing the outer edge of each vein with the knife to create a pattern. It's just for my own little fun design. If you don't like it, skip this part. I have used 2 different camera angles to show the process. Once you get the hang of it, then you can create different sized leaves with the rest of the dark green clay. The next shade is just the green clay. There's no color mixing here, so I'm just kneading the clay and making leaves out of it. Since I'm using just one packet of clay, the number of leaves will be much less than the previous one. However, I'm making these leaves a bit thinner to get a higher number of leaves. Just one of my lazy tactics. While making something out of this clay, if it becomes dry, use a little bit of water to soften it. For example, here the leaves keep getting dry for me to work on. So before I create the veins on a leaf, I'm dipping my finger into water and smearing on top of it. Then using the knife to create dents. Next is lighter most colored leaves. So I'm mixing almost one pack of green clay with almost one pack of yellow, and then creating leaves just like before. Do keep a little bit of yellow and green clay aside for future use. Here I'm using a wooden spoon to show that you can use similar things to make the leaves. However, the spoon's edge is a bit thick, so the dents become thicker and shallow. This is why I recommended an actual old knife that's not sharp enough to cut fingers but thin enough to create precise dents on the clay. But if you don't have a uniquely sharp blunt knife like me, use the back of a spoon or butter knife or anything that can create a good crease on the clay. To make flowers, I made 8 similar sized small white clay balls. Now I'm just rolling it to make it elongated and pinching one side to make it pointy. Then pressing the shape to make it flat like a petal. Like this, making a second petal. Then attaching the second petal to the first one. If the clay is soft, they will stick to each other. If they become dry, then use water or glue to attach. Following the same process, I am making 2 more petals and attaching them to the other ones. Now I am attaching the last 4 petals above each gap of the first 4 petals. So I am making the flower upside down. The final 4 petals will be below the first 4 petals when the flower is done. After attaching all the petals, turn the flower and bend inwards. Then add a small yellow round piece in the center. Here I am using my X-Acto knife to create small dots in the yellow middle section as texture. The second and faster method is to use a flower-shaped cutter. Flatten the clay and cut out 2 flower shapes. Then attach them with each other. Rest is similar. Now shading the leaves. I am shading just the lightest color group of leaves as they'll be on the top of other leaves. For this I am using yellow, light green and dark green chalk pastel powder scraped by my trusty knife. For contrast, I am also adding some orange shades on the leaves. I tried using my proper looking brush, but my aesthetically challenged brush works better and faster. So I switched to my ugly looking brush. What can I say, the ugly brush works efficiently while the pretty one is useless. Before further shading, I want to place the leaves in their places to see the outcome. So I have started with the darkest group of leaves. After I am satisfied with the position, I am attaching them with glue. Since the pieces have dried, I don't want to use water to wet them to stick together. Glue works just fine. Next is the medium shaded leaves. I am positioning them above darker leaves before attaching them with glue. Sometimes I change positions a little while using the glue. On top, I am adding the leaves with the lightest color. This is why I only shaded one group of leaves first. After attaching all the leaves, I can shade only the visible parts of other leaf groups. My laziness gives me some brilliant ideas. As I mentioned before, I changed the position of the leaves a little when attaching them with glue. Now shading the medium leaf group with darker green and blue. I am adding more orange shades on the leaves as I like the contrast. Next, the lowest layer of the leaves. I am using the darkest blue and green shades for this group. Doing the same with the flowers. After attaching them, I am adding some yellow and orange shade to the middle part. I feel it's still a bit empty, so I am making some fish. Making a cylinder shape with a little amount of orange clay. Again, the amount is not measured. I just eyeballed it. While elongating the shape, I put pressure on one side more to make it thinner and pointy. Then take a little amount of clay and make a round ball. Press it to flatten it and then pinch one side to give it a pointy look. I am attaching this flat piece to the thinner part of the cylindrical shape. Then I am cutting the middle of the flat piece with scissors. But you can use X-Acto knife too. Similarly, making other fins and using the knife to create dent on them for texture. Now using the pencil to create eyes and some texture on the body, but you can just use any pointy tool, a needle or a knife will do. After I'm done with texturing, I'm attaching the dorsal fin. Here's a better view of the fish making. Don't forget to pinch the sides near the face to create barbels. It's better to twist the tail and dorsal fin a bit to show motion in their body. It's as if they're swimming. Remember the green and the yellow clay I kept aside? Now I'm mixing them together and using them as tiny floating leaves on the water. Adding quite a few. Using the knife to make a single dent in each leaf. Shading them with my aesthetically challenged brush. Then adding more shade in the water. Hesitantly, I'm adding some white water flow marks as I'm not sure they'll be visible after I brush varnish on the piece. Adding varnish with the number 8 brush. I'll use the smaller brush to add varnish to the nooks and crannies. Well, the white water flow marks are gone. I think there are other ways of doing it, but I'm too lazy for that. And that's how you turn your bad purchase decision into a 3D art piece. I hope you liked it. If you have watched till now, please consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching. Bye!